In this video, we're going to take a break from the course we've been on. In the last few videos, we've talked about history and form and structure of the symphony. Well, with this video, we're actually going to start talking about how to go about writing the symphony. And I'll go into a little bit of my own preparation, and I'll show you some of the sketches and drafts of Symphony Number 3. So what we'll be doing today is what I call the pre-planning stage. In essence, this is where you start to gather your ideas. And in order to do the pre-planning stage, you need three things. Number one, I have with me during the pre-planning stage at all times a book of staff paper. And of course, along with that, I've got my trusty number 2 mechanical pencil. And I always have a mechanical pencil with me because I don't ever need to sharpen this, and make sure I have enough lead and good to go. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to, at this stage, start writing down notes. I'm going to start writing down ideas. And this notebook in particular contains almost all of the drafts and sketches of Symphony 3. Just the bare ideas. You couldn't actually go and create a whole piece from what I've just scribbled down in here, but the ideas are all here. So these are two things: a book of staff paper and a pencil. And the pencil is going to come in handy with the other thing I have with me, and that is a drawing pad. And for me, a lot of times I just like to sit down and doodle and draw out what the form, what the structure of a section is going to be. On this page in particular, I have the entire structure of part 7 of Symphony 3. And tell you what, I will cut and do a close-up of this so you can see and just kind of see my chicken scratch here. What this shows me is overall form. One of the things I like doing is a plot line. And if you don't know what a plot line is, we can go back to basic English. Go back to even elementary level English and you'll get something called the plot line, where you start out at the beginning, you have your rising action, you have your climax, you have your falling action, and then you have your resolution at the end. Well, I do the same thing with my compositions. And I want to put a line showing where the tensions will be, where the dynamics will be, just overall big shapes. And in doing this, I get a very cloudy image of what I'm going to be working on. This is before any notes have been written down. This is before any instruments have been chosen. I just want some basic ideas, some basic shapes. I like to liken this unto a sculptor working in a block of marble. The job of the sculptor is to remove everything from the marble that's not the sculpture. And in doing that, you need to start whittling down to get to your basic rough shape and then smooth out from there. And for me, the composition process is exactly the same. You start off with the big shape and work down toward the little details at the end. So with the pre-planning, I will work on this section for some time just to get some ideas, some structure. A lot of times what I will do is even go as far as storyboarding this, where I will take on note cards or something similar, basic ideas for the sections of the piece. And I say I want this, and I want this, and I want this, and I can move those note cards around until I get the overall form that I want. And in the next video, we'll talk about telling stories through the symphony. and how important that really is to modern symphony writers. But as you pre-plan, you do need to start making some bigger decisions. And one of those is, of course, the basic instrumentation you're going to use. And this can be just as broad as I'm going to use an orchestra, or I'm going to write this for band. And then you can work from there. Early on, when I was planning Symphony number 3, I set out a basic instrumentation of about what I wanted. That instrumentation has not stayed the same as I've gone along. I have had to adjust that instrumentation to the needs of the music. And as I adjust it to the needs of the music suggests other things, and I make tweaks here and there. Usually nothing too big, but enough that the instrumentation that I started with is not the instrumentation that I have now. That is something that you need to start thinking about in the very early pre-planning. So let's say we're going to write a symphony for orchestra. Are we going to write for a larger orchestra or a smaller orchestra? Are we going to have a woodwind section of 2s, 3s, 4s? Or are we going to go even bigger? I would not suggest going bigger if it's your first symphony. We will get to expanded instrumentation much later down the road because that is advanced symphonic writing, but we will talk about that at some point. If you're writing for band, do you want to write for a very standard high school level band? Do you want to write for a college level band? Do you want to write for a professional level band? All of these are completely viable options that you can choose, and each will have differences within the instrumentation that will affect your pre-planning stage. One thing to keep in mind with the pre-planning is don't get set in your ways that you have to go about the route that you choose in the beginning stage. As you write the music may dictate that it needs to go somewhere else other than where you intended it to go. That's okay. Let the music do this because the music is ultimately the driving force behind the symphony. If you say that you want to have this grand finale, this crashing climax, and the music suggests that you need to have this really somber, reserved, quiet ending, go with what the music says and don't force the grand finale onto the music. Do what the music says is appropriate. But always keep in mind that you should start with an overall structure of what you want, but know that that structure can and almost invariably will change. I know with the original structure that I set out with in Symphony 3, that's not the same with what the final structure is going to be. I completely changed some sections. In fact, just recently, within the past month, I added 3 whole new sections to the symphony to give it a little bit more breathing room. And that's, again, another topic that we'll discuss in a future episode. Breathing room and silence, how important those 2 aspects are. But for now, pre-planning, the things you'll need: pencil, have a sketchbook that you can doodle images in, graph things out, and of course staff paper, and just start brainstorming. Get ideas down on paper and realize that most of the ideas won't stick, but a few will be good and worth holding on to. So, until the next video, keep working on your symphony.